If you run a small business and someone hands you a guide to pricing experiments, count how many times it says thousands of visitors before it says anything useful for you. Most of those guides assume a data team and a fire hose of traffic. I've never had either. What I've had is a handful of products with 40 or 60 customers a month and a real need to know whether a price change actually did anything or whether I just got lucky that month. This video is for anyone in that same spot running a small SaaS tool, a course, or a service business where the textbook version of a pricing test simply doesn't fit the numbers you actually have. I run these numbers myself every month on my own businesses, not in a spreadsheet someone else built for a client. So when I say a pricing test on 60 customers can still teach you something, I'm not selling you a course on statistics. I'm telling you what I actually watch for before I change a price on something I depend on to pay my own bills. I'm not going to pretend a test on 60 customers gives you the same confidence as one on 60,000. It doesn't. But not statistically significant is not the same thing as not useful, and that difference matters a lot more than most guides let on. A classic split test, the kind every marketing blog describes, splits your traffic into two groups, shows each group a different price, and waits until the difference in how many people buy is bigger than you'd expect from plain chance. The math behind that, usually some version of a chi-squared test or a test for proportions, needs a decent number of conversions in each group, not visitors, conversions, actual sales. The whole idea is comparing what you actually saw against what ordinary randomness could have produced on its own, and when your groups are small, ordinary randomness can look exactly like a real effect even when there isn't one. Rough rule of thumb, you generally want dozens of conversions per price before the result is worth trusting, and that's for a difference that's already fairly large. A smaller difference needs even more data than that. This is the part most small operators skip past because it's inconvenient, not because it's wrong. Nobody wants to hear that their test needs more customers than their business currently has. Say your product converts at 3% and you get 500 visitors a month. That's roughly 15 conversions split across two prices, 7 or 8 per side. At that volume, one unusually motivated week of buyers or a single refund can swing your winning price by a wide margin. One friend telling another friend to sign up, or one person asking for their money back, is enough to flip which price looks like the winner. Run that test for a month and pick the higher number and you haven't learned anything. You've just watched noise and called it a decision. So the core issue isn't that pricing experiments don't work for small operators, it's that the statistics behind the classic version were built for volume. When you don't have volume, you need a different approach, not a smaller, weaker copy of the same one. A big company with a data team can afford to run a test and shrug off a bad reading because next week's traffic will average it out. You don't get that luxury, so you have to be more deliberate about how you test in the first place. The first change is to stop splitting your traffic at all. Instead of running two prices at once, run one price for a set period, then switch to the other price for the same length of time, and compare what happened in each window. You lose something real here. You can't control for a holiday, a referral spike, or a mention somewhere that happens to land during one of the windows. So if you run price 1 in January and price 2 in February, a slow post-holiday month can quietly wreck the comparison before you even look at the numbers. But you gain more conversions to look at for whichever price is live because you're not cutting your already small traffic in half. The second change is giving each price a real window and writing down that window before you start. If you get 15 conversions a month, 2 weeks isn't a test, it's a coin flip. Give each price at least a full billing cycle, ideally 2, before you draw any conclusion, because a monthly subscription needs at least 1 full renewal cycle to show you anything about whether people actually stick around at that price, not just whether they clicked buy once. And write the start and end date down in advance, not after you've already seen the number you like. That second part matters more than it sounds like it should. The third change is picking bigger gaps between the prices you test. Detecting a $5 difference in how people behave takes a lot of data. Detecting the difference between $29 and $49 takes less, because if there's an effect at all, it's more likely to be large enough to show up above the noise. If your sample is small, don't spend it testing subtle price points next to each other. because a small gap on a small sample gives you a result that's basically indistinguishable from chance either way. Test prices that are meaningfully different, or you'll never see a signal even if one is actually there. The fourth change is tracking more than the headline conversion number. With small counts, conversion rate on its own is a blunt tool. Watch your trial to paid ratio too. Watch refund requests. Watch how far people get into checkout before they drop off. A price change might barely move the top line number, but it can change who converts. Someone willing to pay more might also be a better fit for the product, and that shows up later in support tickets or in churn a few months down the line, not in the sign-up count on day one. Now, reading the results honestly is its own skill, separate from running the test well, and it's the part that actually determines whether the test was worth running at all. The single biggest risk with a small sample pricing test isn't running it, it's over-reading it once you have it. Don't stop the test the moment one price pulls ahead. That habit has a name, peaking, and it inflates false results badly because checking today, then tomorrow, then the day after, and stopping the instant it favors what you were hoping for is really running many small tests in disguise. The same way checking your bank balance 5 times a day and reacting to whichever number you happen to see is not the same as looking at your actual monthly trend. Decide your window before you start and hold to it even when the early numbers look exciting. Look at the range around your number, not just a single point estimate. If price A converts at 4% and price B converts at 6%, that sounds like a real difference. But if each of those percentages comes from 10 conversions, the honest range around each one is wide enough that they probably overlap, meaning the true difference could just as easily be 0 as it could be 2 full percentage points. A calculator that shows you a confidence interval, not just a headline percentage, will make this obvious fast. Without one, a rough gut check works too. Under 30 to 50 conversions per price, treat what you're seeing as directional at best, not proof. Watch for anything else that changed at the same time. Did you run a promotion during the higher priced window? Did a competitor have an outage during the lower priced one? Did you post somewhere new that week or get mentioned in someone else's newsletter? With a small sample, a single outside event can look exactly like a pricing effect because there's so little data drowning it out. Keep a plain log of anything unusual during each window and check it before you believe the result. Form them and separate two things that feel the same but aren't. No difference found is not the same claim as no difference exists. A small test that shows no clear winner between two prices doesn't prove the prices perform identically. It might just mean your sample was too small to catch a real but modest difference. That's the limit of the test you ran. It isn't a fact about your business, and treating it like one is how people end up leaving money on the table for years without ever noticing. Because the uncertainty here is real, a small sample test works best as one input, not the whole decision. Talk to your actual customers. If you get 40 signups a month, you can genuinely reach a meaningful slice of them. A short email asking a handful of questions costs you almost nothing to send. Ask the people who didn't convert what held them back. Ask the people who churned in the first month whether price played any part in it. None of that has a p-value attached to it, but it can explain a pattern that your small quantitative test can't confirm on its own. Track cohorts, not just conversions. Look at customers grouped by the month or the price they signed up under. A plain spreadsheet with a column for each cohort is enough, and follow each group forward. Retention, upgrades, refund requests, the works. A price that looks perfectly fine at the moment of sign up can quietly correlate with worse 90-day retention, and the only way you'd catch that is by following the cohort forward, not by staring at a single conversion snapshot. And treat your price as something you watch on an ongoing basis, not a question you answer once and file away. The same way you'd keep an eye on churn or monthly recurring revenue. Check it on whatever schedule you already use to look at those other numbers, so it never falls out of view once the official test ends. If a price change lines up with a shift in trial to paid rate or a jump in support tickets, that's worth digging into even after your official test window closed weeks ago. So here's the honest summary, and I mean honest, not reassuring. A small sample pricing experiment can tell you the rough direction of an effect. If that effect is large and you ran the test cleanly over a reasonable window, it cannot give you the confidence a large-scale split test would give a bigger business, and no amount of wishful reading changes that. Treating a handful of conversions as proof of anything is one of the most common ways solo operators talk themselves into a decision they'd already made before the test even started. Run the test anyway. Log what else changed while it ran. Be honest with yourself about how wide that confidence interval really is, and pair the number with the conversations and the cohort tracking that a small operation is actually in a good position to gather, better positioned than a big company drowning in dashboards, honestly, because you can actually talk to the people behind every one of those numbers. That combination, the test plus the conversations plus the cohorts, not the test by itself, is what makes a pricing call defensible. If you want the rest of this kind of breakdown, how to read a metric honestly, what a small operator can and can't conclude from their own numbers, every one of these explainers lives in writing at dataresearchanalysiscollection.com, the whole metric library laid out in plain English. Every metric I talk about here is explained in writing at dataresearchanalysiscollection.com. So go read the rest of them and subscribe if you want the next one when it's out.